as entrepreneurs, we all want to build great organizations that make a difference. But there's some challenges. We've got to get everyone around us, our whole team, fully engaged. I'm John Bowen at AES Nation, and I have a remarkable entrepreneur who's going to show us step by step how to do it. He's a best-selling author. He's a fellow financial wealth management guy that really has made his focus showing entrepreneurs how to be fully engaged. He's helped me, and he's here to help you. Stay tuned.
You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Stefan Wissenbach, I am so excited to have you here. You and I have been hanging out for many years together with some great mastermind groups, and you've been helping me personally on a number of fronts in my team, and to finally have you on AES Nation is fantastic.
Oh, thank you for the invitation.
Well, Stefan, you are working with our organization as well as some of our good friends at Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan's organization, on helping entrepreneurs really be engaged. And you're doing it in a really thoughtful, research-based, which I love. But before we go into that, because I want you to dive into that so everybody who's on this podcast, whether they're on video or on the audio podcast, can really learn how they can get their organization engaged to build that organization of their dreams. I mean, all of us are capable of that. And there's nobody that's an entrepreneur out there that can't make it even better. But Stefan, tell me this progression. You've been a serial entrepreneur, a bestseller, author. Give me a little bit of background so that everybody knows where you're coming from on these recommendations.
Sure. Now, as you alluded to earlier, I started my working career as a financial advisor, and I very quickly realized that in working with successful entrepreneurs and business owners, every single person that I met wanted to be in a position where one day work was optional. And I didn't mean they want to stop work, it just meant they would have the choice. And we all want that choice. What I also noticed back then was it was remarkable that most of the entrepreneurs we were dealing with had no idea what that actually meant. And the crazy thing was that they had a written plan for their business, so they wouldn't have dreamed of running their business without a business plan, but the only written plan they had for themselves was a written plan for when they were dead. So back then I developed a unique structure. I'm passionate about the power of structure. I think businesses and entrepreneurs all achieve so much more when we have a robust structure and framework. And I came up with the concept of the magic number, the amount of wealth that someone needs so work is optional. And we built a website helping people all over the world to discover their magic numbers. So, a pretty cool structure. And then we evolved that and built it further to help people all over the world set and achieve their goals. And we set a website up called magicfuture.com. And in the work that I do in the private consulting with organizations, helping them to build what I call an engaged organization, which is very much aligned with Dan Sullivan's self-managing company. You can't have a self-managing company unless you have an engaged organization. I have evolved our offering. We were taking Magic Future into businesses all over the world and helping business owners to give their staff a benefit that would not require them to die, retire, or fall sick in order to get a benefit. And that was Magic Future. That was helping their staff to set and achieve goals. And that evolved into another structure, which is the engagement multiplier platform, where we now have an online platform that helps any business anywhere in the world improve the levels of engagement within their organization and turn it from being a top-down driven approach to being a bottom-up approach that really, really works. But I guess my takeaway for the key takeaway here in terms of the success that I've had as an entrepreneur for the listeners is the power of structure and having some form of a framework or structure that helps you to do what you need to do. And I've just done it with Engagement Multiplier and Magic Future and Magic Number. But my question to the listeners would be, what problems are they currently uncovering that could be solved with a structure, and what elements of their business could they perhaps take online and scale globally if they had a structure? And what structures could they provide to their customers to help make their customers' decisions easy? We're doing it in the engagement space, helping entrepreneurs to build engaged organizations, but it translates, it's a perfectly transferable insight for any entrepreneur in any space.
Well, and this is why you and I totally agree, Stefan. What happens, we're both financial people. We have a passion for numbers. We want to measure success. And we're also big on processes and systems. And once you start putting those together, it's amazing what you can do. And I always think of it as this process of nail and scale. You nail the client experience, whether you're selling widgets or you're doing professional services. And once you have that and you measure that, then you can scale it up. And what I love about the work that you're doing now, Stefan, is this whole idea of really measuring the organization. In a meeting you and I were at recently, Dan shared his measurements of his company. And Dan was very quick to point out, nobody's perfect. And we're all at different levels. I jumped at the chance, and I've got your team is working with my team, and we're doing that measurement. And I have a virtual company. I don't have the traditional employees, and everybody's an independent contractor, but it's a pretty large organization across multiple companies. And what we see is this measure of engagement. And what I want to do is I want to dive into what an engaged organization looks like, and then what are the key drivers of success, Stefan, that you're measuring, so that everybody that's on the podcast video or virtual or audio will go ahead and really be able to take these lessons and start thinking about how could they pull together. And then we're going to make a bunch of resources available at the end, and you can always go get the transcript at aesnation.com, the show notes, and all the links that Stefan and I talk about. But Stefan, first of all, let's describe what why do I want an engaged organization? I mean, it used to be, I know I kind of thought of this in my young days of starting businesses, that I write somebody a check. I don't care if they like it or not. I'm buying behavior, and they're going to go do something. And I've learned that's not enough anymore. So how do I get people, what is an engaged organization first?
Yeah, so a great question. I'd like to cover that. I'd also like to talk about measurement, because I think that's a very valid point. So, an engaged organization, I hope there's not too many management consultants listening, because I don't want to upset them. But I have this approach to simplifying the complex. And a lot of management consultants will come into your business and charge you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to borrow your watch and tell you the time. And I absolutely believe that the answers to an engaged organization lie within the very organization itself that wants to become more engaged. The answers lie within the team members that want to become more engaged. And the problem is that businesses just don't have a structure to unlock that. And I think whilst engagement's become really popular in recent years, and I have here in front of me the Gallup State of the Nation American Workforce 2013 report, which if I dropped it on my foot, it would hurt. And it's just full of stats. I mean, it's just full of incredible statistics about what an engaged organization means in terms of much higher profits, reduced staff turnover, a happier place to work. And anyone that's interested in understanding more about engagement just has to Google that. And, the facts are overwhelming. So I'm not going to sit here and just quote lots of stats at you now. But what I find that most engagement programs make it unnecessarily complicated. And they tend to also start with focusing really in many cases on how do we get our customers more engaged. And it's absolutely the wrong end of the spectrum to focus. In my humble opinion, the first thing you have to focus on is having an engaged vision. You need something that everyone can get behind. You need something that a new member of staff joining on day one would want to go home and sit around the dinner table and talk about that to their friends and loved ones, and they could articulate it clearly. And it doesn't run to lots of pages, and it doesn't make sense to only people in that space. It connects. And then from engaged vision, you need engaged owners.
Let's stop here, Stefan. I want to talk about each of these, because they're so important. And when I think of engaged vision, so many of us have written visions and mission plans and this, and as entrepreneurs, particularly, we write them and we put them away, and or better yet, we hang them up in the lobby. And what we're talking about here and is that our job as entrepreneurs is to inspire people to action. And if we're not clear on where we want to send them, then boy, we don't harness their full energy. And what I like, Stefan, I mean, what you recognize in this is how important it is to provide that clear direction. So that's the first one. And what I like, and this is one of the things that, I mean, the research that Stefan's doing on this is what we think as entrepreneurs is not it. We can have tremendous clarity of purpose and vision and so on. It's what our team has. And, ask yourself, where are you in that matrix? And, both in direction and, the vision and clarity of purpose and how connected they are with it and feel. Okay, but let's say we got that. Where do we go next?
So, well, there's 5 key areas in an engaged organization. As we said, there's the vision, the entrepreneurs or owners, the leaders, the employees, and then the customers. And if you focus on the first 4, so you focus on getting vision right, make sure that the entrepreneurs are engaged, make sure that the leaders are engaged and the team are engaged, the customers tend to by default almost become engaged, because that engagement dissipates out from the organization because all the employees are connected to the vision, everyone has clarity on where the business is heading, there's interaction with leadership, which is positive, everyone gets the chance to have their voice heard, and the business is constantly learning and growing. But the key takeaway, I think, is measurement, right? So Dan always tells us that what gets measured gets done, and what gets measured and reported improves exponentially. And one of the key value drivers behind our engagement model is that each organization has a score. And you spoke earlier about you would have a view of your score based on your view of those 5 categories, but your team members might think differently. Well, that's a pretty valuable insight to understand how your view of the vision differs to the team's vision of version of the vision or their score on the vision. Well, so the measurement's key.
Well, let's talk about that, Stefan. Think about, the engaged entrepreneur. I mean, the reality is, many of us think of ourselves as visionary leaders. I know in my first business I started, I was clear. I'm in Silicon Valley. Everybody has to be a visionary leader. The reality is, I'm not sure I really was. As a matter of fact, I know I wasn't. And what's important is not so much that I believe that, but the rest of the team. And knowing that, so that, as you're saying, you measure that, then all of a sudden what happens is there's a real opportunity to make mid-course corrections. But you want to really provide that. And if you know that, then geez, the ability to, caucus and, work with them to make sure they understand the vision and then provide that leadership, or if you're not the right one, to get the training, or if you're not, you shouldn't do it, to go and bring in leadership, professional management to help you. So, I mean, that, I just see so many ways to improve based on this kind of, if you can get those first 4 right, the 5 hits, and measure it as well.
Yeah, and I think the important thing here is everyone's measuring the same way. Okay, so that's where the scorecard is breakthrough, because and we're going to give everyone here that's listening to this access to the scorecard and the website. So you can get access to the scorecard to see very easily. There's 4 categories on it, running through from dysfunctional to fragmented to successful to engaged. And if you take vision, for example, there's 4 descriptions there. So everyone in the organization gets to score based on the same framework. So you're removing any subjectivity and making it much more objective, and it's the individual's view. So if we take entrepreneur, what's an engaged entrepreneur? Well, this should resonate with a lot of people listening to this. An engaged entrepreneur is visionary leadership. Entrepreneurs have a written plan for engaged futures, a big vision they're passionate about in both their personal and business lives. They're fulfilling their own potential. embracing change and innovation, and they're on a forward trajectory. They share their inspiration and motivation, and they're genuinely concerned about their employees, actively seeking to engage managers, leaders, and team members who align to create an engaged culture. They celebrate success with their team, and they create an open culture of communication that's rich in feedback and recognition, and they're passionate about the power of engagement. So now, that's in the engaged section of the scorecard, and you could score a 10 or 11 or a 12 there. And you might think of yourself as an 11, and it would be interesting to see whether your leaders think that you're an 11 and whether your employees think you're an 11. And knowing that is incredibly valuable because you can see instantly where the gaps are. You don't need someone to come in and borrow your watch to tell you the time. You just need to understand how the views of engagement differ from across the organization, and the actions that you need to take next are really clear. And just to talk about that, a lot of people try and do too much too soon. We believe in playing a game you can win and only doing a little and often rather than big but seldom. And that's why we recommend that you measure engagement every 90 days. Our program, it only takes less than 10 minutes every quarter. And the goal becomes moving the score up a little bit each quarter, which everyone can resonate with and connect within the organization, because there's the one score that you can focus on moving. That's where what gets measured gets done, and what gets measured and reported improves exponentially is very, very important. People won't continue to participate in engagement surveys or scoring engagement if you are not courteous in giving them the feedback for their efforts and then thanking them for those, and then having them actively participate in improving the score.
Yeah, what I like Stefan a lot, and whether you use this type of tool or another tool, what is so valuable is getting the rest of the group. As entrepreneurs, a lot of times, it's our responsibility to do all the leadership, to accelerate all the success and everything else. And the reality is, you have a great team, or if you don't have a great team, you got to get a great team. And as you put that team together, what happens is you want it to be their responsibility as well as yours to be fully engaged. Well, the challenge is, if we don't have measurements, we don't create definitions of what that means. Because, Stefan, why don't you hold up the card so everybody can see, on the aesnation.com you can go to, and you'll be able to download this. And this provides some great insights. Let me just flash in. Why don't you flip it over to the other side too? Because I think
so. That's the simple headings, and then this here we have the detailed headings for. There we go.
Yeah, and so the reason that's great, Stefan. The reason why I like it so much is that what you've done is organize what you talked about, that consultants who are telling us time by borrowing the watch. What we have is we have really a situation where they're going ahead, and now you've given the framework so that they can execute. And this is so important, because if we look at the engaged leaders, I feel like I'm really blessed. I've got a great team. They're very, in my mind, very engaged. I'm looking to see what the scores come up, but they're very engaged. And what's been really freeing, Stefan, is the leaders are focused on growth. They want to create a bigger pie. They want to deliver the great experience. We're getting super ideas on a regular basis from there, where in past businesses, a lot of times I had to do it. I felt like I was doing everything. And boy, what a freeing when you get that self-managed, fully engaged organization.
Absolutely. Engaged leaders, our definition is that they're achievement integrators. Okay, they're passionate about the organization's goals, developing and expanding their own powerful engaged futures, integrating those of the owners with those of other team members. They break down barriers. They put people first by getting to know them. They feel connected to the entrepreneur and empowered to proactively translate vision into action. They engage in effective, regular communication and feedback with team members, as well as conduct quarterly engaged reviews, engaged hiring, and induction programs.
Yeah, I mean, so who would, as fellow entrepreneurs, who among us doesn't want that? I mean, that's what we want. Is we want leaders and then team members to be fully engaged. to accomplish this. And, Stefan, what happens when, as a company progressively moves more in that engagement? Because, you've been a very successful entrepreneur. I don't know if you ever had dysfunctional teams. I've been part of a dysfunctional team. I've been part of high performing teams. And it's just such a difference. I mean, what can the entrepreneur, as they move progressively through that engagement, this matrix that you've created, that engagement multiplier, what can they see, what are the changes? Because, a lot of times when we get numbers, numbers alone aren't that exciting. It's the results that are going to make the huge difference.
Yeah. And I think engagement has to start with the entrepreneur, okay? It has to start with the business owner. But you very quickly, as an entrepreneur, you want to shift that from it being a top-down driven process to being a bottom-up driven process. Otherwise, you'll never truly have an engaged organization, because you're going to have to be the one that's constantly providing the direction and pushing. What you want is to translate the engagement game from, which is why there's a score, from being effectively a top-down driven approach to bottom-up. And the way that we do that is by surveying the organization every 90 days, confidentially and anonymously, encouraging you to share the score and sharing the top insights. And there's a couple of questions that we ask that any organization can ask, and these are worth making a note of. We provide the scorecard because it provides a uniform structure. Okay, it's not contrived. It's just very clear. And in the same way as Dan says, you need to do an impact filter. That's one of Dan's fabulous tools that, you define the successful outcome before you go into something. But this scorecard does exactly the same. It has a range of sort of levels, but it absolutely defines a successful outcome, which gives people the context they need to understand where they sit in relation to that. And the two questions that, once they've completed the scorecard, we ask them are, what 2 actions could you take to improve engagement at XYZ that are not dependent on leadership involvement? Now, for something not to be dependent on leadership involvement, it normally doesn't have to take much time or cost a lot of money. Otherwise, it probably should be involving leadership.
Stefan, when you said this to me before, I go, this is it. Why would I? It doesn't cost much money, doesn't take much time, and great execution will get great results. And you don't have to think about it as a leader. This is what we're all dreaming
absolutely. of. And we ask for 2 things. So if you were working for my organization or in my organization, I'd be asking you for what 2 things can John Bowen do, and you would self-select those. And then underneath it says, what 1 thing could leadership do that would improve engagement? So there's this like 2-for-1 deal, which gets people thinking that, it's Joe Polish is great. You have to first of all give before you receive. And it gets people into the mindset of what actions can they personally take. And we encourage you to empower your team members to go and execute those 2 actions that are not dependent on leadership involvement, and celebrate the successes of those. When people come forward and say, yeah, they did this, this, and this, and it worked, really trumpet those successes and celebrate those successes, and create a culture where you're actively encouraging the team members to take more of the initiative and have their voice heard. That's another very important thing. You have to, and one of the things that a confidential anonymous survey does is it allows everyone to have a voice. And as Dan Sullivan says, his most junior member of staff carries 1 vote. He carries 1 vote. It's the same vote, okay? And you're getting to see it across the whole organization, which is important.
Well, and I just had a project team meeting just before our call, Stefan, and what I love is, one of the not real senior guys came up with something that will probably save $50,000 a year. Okay, and he was just he thought over the holidays, and he just said, this is something I want to make sure. And how could you not love somebody like this? And and what I like, what you're doing, so many of us as entrepreneurs, we leave it to chance. Even if we're a visionary leader, they're all engaged, they understand where we're going. if we don't really allow them this flexibility to make suggestions and let them know that they've been heard, and even more importantly, the really good ideas that we can execute on without time and a lot of time and money, boy, we're missing a big opportunity as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely, and hope is never a strategy, is it? So that's where having a structure is really important.
Well, let's go. I've got a little bit of a structure here. Let's go to the next segment, and it's the book of the day, Stefan. Your fellow entrepreneurs. I mean, you are. I know you're well read because you fly over the pond many times. We get together. I haven't got together with you in the UK where you're based, but you're all over the world doing great things. What would you recommend to your fellow entrepreneurs as a book that they should read?
Yeah, this is so easy because it's just the best book I've ever read, and I suspect most people on this podcast will recommend any number of the brilliant business books that are out there. This is a bit of a different twist. It's a book called Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts, and I have a copy of it here, and let me just read you this because it has so many entrepreneurial connections. So in the early 1980s, Gregory David Roberts, an armed robber and heroin addict, escaped from an Australian prison to India, where he lived in a Bombay slum. There he established a free health clinic and joined the mafia, worked as a money launderer, a forger, and a street soldier. He found time to learn Hindi and Marathi, fell in love, and spent time being worked over in an Indian jail. Then, just in case anyone thought he was slacking, he acted in Bollywood, fought with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, and he wrote Shantaram, this book, 3 times before prison guards trashed the first 2 versions. It's a profound tribute to his willpower, and it's referred to as a high-kicking, eye-gouging adventure, a love saga, and a savage yet tenderly lyrical fugitive vision. Now, I'm not suggesting that I want the listeners to become, involved in money laundering or forging or joining the mafia, but the reason this is such a good book is it's a true story, and it just makes you realize the art of the possible if you really do have a vision and you get off your backside and you really make things happen. Because this guy has achieved more in 1 lifetime than most people achieve in 5 lifetimes. When I first started reading it, I was on holiday with my wife, and I was so excited. I got halfway through the book and I tore it in half down the spine so she could start reading the first half whilst I finished the back half. It's an amazing book.
Well, I just ordered it, Stefan, with your recommendation. I love those kind of books where people, overcome adversity, rise to the occasion, and create amazing things, which it sounds like it is. You've also got a new book coming out, and at the time of the recording, it's not yet available, but you've offered to make it available to aesnation.com. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book you're writing, and we'll have the link to get that at aesnation.com.
Yeah, great. So just for context, listeners, this is not a work of literary excellence like Shantaram. It's a very simple book. It's called The Engaged Organization, the organization you dream about. And the book takes you on a very simple and straightforward journey and sets out the steps that you can take to create an engaged organization. It expands on the scorecard, covers each of the 5 key aspects of an engaged organization, and highlights some really straightforward tips and steps that you can take to move your organization from where it is to being something that you love even more than you do right now.
Well, and I got to tell you, I was with Stefan. I think we had about 30 people over a lunch presentation you made. And these are some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And we all said, we want in. I mean, we want, having the engaged organization. It's so valuable. So, whether you're going to take him up on the survey or the tools, take them up on the book for sure. See how you can do that. That's, AES Nation is really a virtual mastermind that we have, and this is all of us coming together to inspire each other for even more success. Stefan, I want to go to the next segment, which is App of the Day. And on your smartphone, what are you recommending to your fellow entrepreneurs?
This is really easy. It's an app called Say It, Mail It. And it does what it says on the tin. You hit the app, icon, you then speak into the phone and say it, and then you hit mail it, and it sends a voice recording. Initially, you can set up a default, which is my very valuable assistant, and you can also change the voice note for it to go to anyone that you want to. So for busy entrepreneurs that are often a little bit ADD, that want to get things done fast, and this is even quicker than typing an email, you can just quickly hit say it, and then you can mail it. It's a real time saver, and it's made a huge difference to me because it also enables you to really convey context as well as the content, because you're able to, and all they do is they open up their email and they just hit the icon and it plays. It's super simple.
Okay, and then let me go to the next segment, which are resources, Stefan. And what I want to do is I want to pull up, let me pull that up, your website and the engagementmultiplier.com, multiplier.com. And tell us what they're going to see here.
Yeah, so the website's engagementmultiplier.com, and what you'll see there is an outline of the Engagement Multiplier program. But probably more importantly, there's a couple of things you can do there. One, in just a very short, just a few minutes, you can, as an entrepreneur, take the online test for free to get your engagement score, and we'll then email that through to you. And you can also download an example of the Engagement Multiplier report that shows the insight that we provide to aspirational engaged organizations. So engagementmultiplier.com, there's a very simple survey you can take to get your engagement score right there.
No, that's great. Let me go to the last segment where I want to report what I've heard here. These are the key takeaways that I'm walking away with, and there's so many of them. And number one, big number one, is work is optional. Stefan, you brought that up when you're the financial side. When I worked with so many successful entrepreneurs as a financial advisor here in Silicon Valley, that was my number one thing, is helping them arrange their financial affairs, the numbers, as you say, so that work was optional. Most of them, almost all of them, didn't really want to stop working. They just wanted to know it's optional. As entrepreneurs, we all know when we have that feeling, that's just an amazing thing. Second, it's all about systems and processes. You get that client experience going, whatever it is, widget, professional service, and so on, then you want to scale it up. The third, and this is the big one, and it's so big, is you want to build an engaged enterprise. You want to build an organization that really is your dreams. And the only way you can do that is to get fully engaged with your team. Stefan, I really appreciate the time you spent with us to show how the entrepreneurs can do that, to make available the resources. Definitely go to aesnation.com, get Stefan's new book, do the survey, and make sure your whole, not only are you engaged, you're the engaged leader, your senior team, your teammates, and ultimately your clients are. You've got to execute. Your clients and your future clients are counting on you. Wish you the best of success.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. aesnation.com